come from, you are welcome here. And so I hope you will feel that in this place and in this space and this night. There's lots to eat. Help yourself. There are bathrooms through the door and with some signs that sort of point the way. And make yourselves comfortable. We are here tonight from many different places, from many different paths. And so as a way to begin, I would invite you all to join me in just a moment of silence to call the Spirit, wherever you may call that Spirit from, to call a spirit of peace, of hope, of promise, of good conversation. Will you join me for a moment? Silence is truly, truly blessedness. I would like to now introduce to you John Diefenbacher-Krall, who is the Executive Director of the Maine Indian Tribal State Commission, and he is going to lead us in this conversation tonight. John, welcome.
Thank you. I don't know so much I'm going to be leading you in conversation. Traditionally, Wabanaki people and many indigenous peoples start a gathering like this as a prayer, and I'd like to ask Richard Syllaboy if he might share that with us.
I just ask the Creator to guide us. Thank Him for allowing us to come here and together and to give us guidance to get through this evening and have everybody have a safe journey back home. So, anyways, I noticed that the only ones in the front circle are the people that travel the furthest. So, this is a church, but it's not a service, so it's okay to sit in the front row. Not going to pass the plate. A lot of us go a great distance to share with you what we have on our mind about the topic here today. And it would be a shame if I drove that distance and tried to share some information and somebody in the back row didn't hear it. So I invite you all to come into the circle as close as you can, so we can be a closer net and be able to communicate. Thank you.
Great. Looks like people are kind of settled down. I want to do some introductions. Jamie Bissonette-Louis is going to be the first person speaking. She's the chair of the Maine Indian Tribal State Commission. For those of you who don't know what the Maine Indian Tribal State Commission is, we're out of the result of the Maine Indian Claims Settlement Act from 1980. And we have the responsibility for monitoring the implementation of that Settlement Act, or you could think of it as a treaty. That's what we would call it in the 18th or 19th century. And to continuously monitor the relationship between the Houlton Band of Maliseet Indians, the Passamaquoddy Tribe, the Mascot Indian Nation, and the state of Maine. I am the Executive Director of the Maine Indian Tribal State Commission. Jamie is the chairperson. We're also very delighted we have two of our state commissioners with us tonight, Cushman Anthony and Roy Partridge. The commissions comprise overall 13 people, 2 from each one of the tribes, and 6 from the state. The idea of keeping that balance. And those 12 elected Jamie in July of 2010. Also with us this evening is Gisa Tonalik, a Wampanoag citizen and also a lecturer at the University of Maine in Native American Studies and Peace Studies. Newell Louie, elected tribal counselor from the Passamaquoddy tribe at Pleasant Point. Richard Syllaboy, elected tribal counselor, Rustic Band of Micmacs. And Norman Bernard, elected counselor of the Rustic Band of Micmacs. And Jamie's got to lead us into this discussion this evening.
Thank you, John. Can everybody hear me? Because I'm known to have kind of a soft voice. And so if you can't hear me, raise your hand and tell me, and I'll try to ratchet it up a little bit. I know that when we commonly introduce people, we do introduce them by way of what would be valued. They are teachers, they are tribal counselors. There's another piece. I'm very humbled to sit here with these 4 men. They are pipe carriers, they are spiritual leaders, they are recognized people in their community, and all of them are healers. And I'm just very honored to be here and to share this evening with them. I'm not going to stand up because it's easier to, I think, I will stand at some point, but I'm not going to stand to start. When I became chair of the Maine Indian Tribal State Commission, there was a task that was given to me, a task that had already been decided by the commission. And that task was to go out to the communities that were still using the Mascot written and open a conversation based in healing, and a conversation that created the capacity to maybe walk away from an image that, as Native people, carries a long history. And the more I prayed about it, the more I realized that we all share this common tragic history, especially those of us whose families have been here for a long time. You hear our kids, and you probably all, when you were in school, learned about the 500-year war, the 100-year war in Europe. Where they thought, oh God, war that lasted for 100 years. But there was actual warfare, consecutive wars with names to them, for over 300 years, right in this area, southern Maine, southern New Hampshire, trickling into northern Massachusetts. And these wars involved my ancestors, everyone's ancestors who were here, and perhaps some of your ancestors. And when war takes place, there's harm. There's harm on both sides. And after peace came, many of us were in northern part, not close down here. So now we think that at this time we're coming back, and we're extending a hand in healing, and we're asking to make that final step here. The topic's a hard one, and a couple times I've been asked if I think of this as a conversation about racism, and I don't. And I want to say that here tonight. I believe you when you tell me that this mascot was adopted because of attributes and respect and honor that you have for Indigenous people. But the name means something different. And the something different is very hard for us. I've had this, that's in my lap, and I'll pass it around after I read it to you. I've had this in my office since I was 18 years old. And it's a hard thing to look at. And at times I've wished it wasn't hanging on the wall, because it reminds me of a period of history that was very, very difficult. What I have here is the Spencer Phipps Proclamation. And this proclamation has nothing to do with anyone here in this room. After what we call Greylock's War, after the name of the Abenaki chief who led his people, and is recorded in your history books as Domer's War after the British general who led the other side. After that conflict was over, conflict continued here in Maine, and the Penobscot Nation was the only nation the only home community that had more than 10 men left. The numbers were low. They were 8 in some of the centers, some were 6, 10. The Penobscot had 90. And they became strong protectors for the women and the children that were left. And they fought hard. And the Massachusetts Bay Colony felt that they needed to take a very drastic step and do away with the Penobscot. And so they issued a scouting proclamation against the Penobscot, shortly followed by 2 proclamations against the Micmacs, and preceded by 1 against the Wampanoag. And the proclamation I'm going to read to you tonight, along with all those others, still has the force of law. It's still in Massachusetts. It's never been rescinded. And why is this important? It's important because that's where our ancestors remember this term redskin coming from. Initially, when we read this, we'll see that my elders giving me directions. We will see that they initially called for the individual people, the bodies to be brought in, but then they changed to the scalps, and they did so because it was easier to transport a scalp to Wiscasset or Boston, where they would be redeemed for the bounty. And at times the bounty became very high. It was 350 pounds at one point, which was twice the salary of a teacher in Boston, twice the annual salary of a teacher in Boston. So you can imagine the not-so-nice characters that were attracted to registering as bounty hunters and going in. And when the bounties were brought in, they would be asked how many redskins you had. And that's the first time our ancestors ever remember being called redskins. I think that each person here can tell you the name that their people use to describe Indian people. But I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to pass it around. And I ask you to bear with me because it's hard for me to read this. Spencer Phipps, Lieutenant Governor and Commander-in-Chief in His Majesty's province of the Massachusetts Bay in New England, a proclamation. Whereas the tribe of Penobscot Indians have repeatedly, in a perfidious manner, acted contrary to their solemn submission to His Majesty's long since made and frequently renewed, I have therefore, as the desire of the House of Representatives, with the invoice of His Majesty's Council, thought fit to issue this proclamation and to declare the Penobscot tribe of Indians to be enemies, rebels, and traitors to His Majesty King George II. And I do hereby require His Majesty's subjects of this province to embrace all opportunities of pursuing, captivating, killing, and destroying all and every of the aforesaid Indians. And whereas the General Court of this province has voted that a bounty or encouragement be granted and allowed to be paid out of the public treasury to marching forces that shall have been employed for the defense of the eastern and western frontiers from the 1st to the 25th of this instant November, I have thought it fit to publicize the same, and I do hereby promote that there shall be paid out to the province treasury, to all and any of the said forces, over and above the bounty upon fulfillment of their wages and subsistence, the premiums of the following bounty. For every male Penobscot Indian above the age of 12 that shall be taken within the time aforesaid, be brought to Boston, 50 pounds. For every scalp of a male, that's the person, a male person. For every scalp of a male Penobscot Indian above the age aforesaid, brought in as evidence, shall be killed as aforesaid, 40 pounds. For every female Penobscot Indian taken and brought as aforesaid, and for every male Indian prisoner under the age of 12, 25 pounds. For every scalp of such female Indian or male Indian under the age of 12 shall be killed and brought in as evidence of their being killed, 20 pounds. And this was given on the 3rd day of November, 1755. And so what I'm asking tonight is that we are going to in a spirit of healing, to open a conversation, to hear each other, and we're extending our hands, we're opening our ears. I'm going to pass this around, and then I'm going to sit down and get those who are more prepared.
I certainly will. Thank you, and thank you everyone for coming. My name is Newell Louis, and I'm just a Passamaquoddy tribe. I'm also half Maliseet, and when I was asked to come down, I thought it clearly, and Jamie told me what the format would be, that it wouldn't be a debate, it would just be a sharing of information. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a couple of stories with you all, and tell you a little bit about where I've been and what I've been through. And I guess I'll do that first and just say that I grew up off the reservation. I live there now, and I'm also become a council member, but I grew up in a non-native community, and we were the only family in town, and I'll say I, because I can't speak for my siblings, but I had a difficult time in that situation. And, over the years, I've learned to adapt and understand, where my feelings were coming from and the feelings of other people, where they were all coming from. And so when I was asked to come down here and just talk, what I wanted to present was just a couple of stories and then a couple of words, two words in particular. And one is thinking and one is believing. And then I'm going to share another little story. But I want you to think about those two words for a moment. And then, because when I think about them, and when I do some trainings outside of my community, I always ask people to think about those particular words in terms of what you all believe. And I want to just tell you now, I don't judge anybody for whatever they believe in. I understand that. I have beliefs myself. But I also like to think that I have the ability to think. And so we have these beliefs that are here. So when somebody asks me to think about something that's over here, I have to really reach out of myself and say, okay, can I really think about that? Or am I just going to think about it in the confines of what I believe? And I want to tell a story about that in terms of throughout history, the United States history we're talking about now. Let's say women, were they allowed to vote in the 1915, 1920, 1925? I can't remember the year that it changed. But the belief before them that women were inferior, they didn't have the capacity to vote, or they wouldn't understand what was going on. That wasn't true, was it? But it took somebody to say, okay, wait a second. If we want to give the women the right to vote, that's out of all of these people's belief system. So how are we going to handle that? So really, you've got to take things as they come to you and really put them in perspective and say, okay, everybody believes this, but now this is being presented. So how is it going to fit? Am I going to stay here, or am I going to reach out, take this thing, bring it in, and really, really think about it? So the words for me to think and believe are pretty huge. Like I said, we all have beliefs, and we all have the capacity to think. But do we use them independently, or do we interchange the meanings? Like a lot of people will say, well, I believe. Or do you, and I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm just asking you to think about what we are presenting here tonight, I guess. And with that said, I want to also tell another story about if you're learning something, right, that maybe women can vote or natives can vote. Really, we didn't get the right to vote, I think, in the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken. If we have, we can think about those things. But the other thing I wanted to mention was a story about learning different things. I tell a story about my going to visit my daughter, who's 28 right now, and my granddaughter. And I have two dogs, actually on the car. And so I stop and visit them, and we're playing ball with the dog and my granddaughter, and the ball rolls down to my daughter's car. So I go down and pick up the ball, and when I go down to pick it up, it's against her vehicle. And I look down and I look at her tire. It's completely bald, and there's wires sticking out on the side. And I said, Emily, I said, your tire is totally bald. She says, I know, Dad, but I don't have any money. I can't get no checks. So we went on, with the visit, and then I went home. And so on the way home, I started thinking about that. And I thought, when I got home, I got thinking about it more. And the next day, I went out and bought her a set of tires for her car. And the point is that once, if I hadn't gone there to visit her that day, or if I hadn't seen her in maybe a couple, 3 or 4 more days, who knows what would have happened, right? But now I had some information. I had the information that her tires were completely bald, she didn't have any money. But what am I going to do with the information? I can't unlearn it. It's mine now. So I have to deal with it. I have to process it somehow and learn from that. And anyway, so I took it and used it because there was no way for me to change it. And so tonight, I guess what I'm asking anyone or everyone here, I guess, is that I'm not asking you to believe me, and I'm not asking you to change your minds. I'm just asking you to think about the reason we're here. Well, the word rescues, I guess, using it as your mascot, and to think about what that means for Native people and how that might feel if it was within yourself.
Mm-hmm. I'm Richard Sullivan. I got to stand up. As halfway through my speech, somebody will tell me to stand up when I'm already standing up. I am not a speaker, nor do I intend to be, and I didn't know whether this is going to be a question and answers here this evening, or whether we was going to give up and give some kind of a speech. And just in case, I sit down at the computer and I typed out a whole letter today, and took a lot of time, and geez, it sounded good. I read it over 2 or 3 times. I forgot it in the car. So what I got to say, I guess, is going to have to come from behind, which is the best place. And so the title of the Mascot, whether it stays or whether it goes, some of us will feel good about it and others won't. And that's about the bottom line of that. Some people say it's offensive, others say it isn't. And whether it is or not, it's going to be up to the people that whether or not we keep it, or you keep it. I don't want it. But I guess, I heard people say that we've had it for a long, long while, and 60 years or so, and that it was taken in respect of the Native people. I guess where I want to start is back in 1810. 1810, there were some treaties that were passed, and it began the 150 years of silent minority. The Native people didn't speak out until 1960s, and that was after the African Americans stood up for their rights. Only after that did the Native people stand up for their rights. And that's over 50 years ago. 50 years ago, it didn't matter what the Native Americans thought. It didn't matter what the Native Americans said, because we were looked at as a silent minority. We were accepted only because we existed, only because there was nobody out there taking bounties anymore. But 60 years ago, when somebody said, well, let's take this name on for the mascot, did they really know what it meant? And if they did know, would they care back then? Because nobody cared about the Native Americans, what they thought, or what they did anyway. But today, do we think different today? Or do we just continue to disrespect other people, other cultures, other traditions? The white man's been trying to assimilate the Native Americans for many, many years, tried many different things, and tried to assimilate, exterminate, just to push to one side, put them on reservations, leave them over there. In Sydney, Nova Scotia, they built a new reservation for the Micmac Indians over there. And then Sydney started to grow. And he was trying to assimilate the Micmac people in Nova Scotia. But when Sydney was growing fast enough, so it was getting too close to the reservation, what do you think they did? Let's move them back further. We don't want to be that close. We like to see them assimilated so they can be like us. But we don't want them near us. Little do people realize that by treating the Native Americans the way we were treated and just being ignored, the white man did us a favor, a great favor, because it brought us closer together as Native people. It created great generosity from one Native household to another. No doors were locked. Nobody was ever turned away. Anybody came in, they were fed or given tea and welcomed. And our culture, we kept our culture. We kept our traditions. And we kept our language. In the 60s, when we started being accepted into the white man's society, I jumped right at it. I was brought up off the reservation, too. I went to Littleton School, just north of Holton. And the reason why I was born in Maine, his mother got away from the province of Nova Scotia to keep her kids out of the residential school of Shubanagan. And she moved us over here and we stayed here. And she worked hard. She cut pulp. She peeled cedar. She picked potatoes, raked blueberries, cut seed, all seasonal stoop labor. And she was a basket maker. And because she was a basket maker, the farmers, Aroostook County used to be the potato capital of the world. And every potato picker needed a basket to pick it. And she would produce baskets. And we were told that we could go on anybody's property and cut brown ash as long as we carried it out. and only because it was beneficial to the white man. You know, they didn't do that out of the goodness of their heart. If we could go in the woods and bring out a tree and make a basket and sell it, we wasn't going to the town office to get a food order. You know, and we were trying to be independent. Mother was very independent. We didn't know that the state of Massachusetts reimbursed the state of Maine. We didn't know that the state of Maine reimbursed the towns 100% for any voucher that was given out to the Native people. And every time my mother went to the town office for a voucher, whether it be a clothing voucher or a food voucher, she would make this extra nice basket for the town manager. And they had a good relationship. You bring me a good basket and I'll give you a voucher. And then she was reimbursed 100%. So she ended up with a whole lot of baskets, you know, for her collection. Assimilation was something that was accepted within our own people. And in the 60s, when it started. In the 70s, when people were curious about Indian people. In the 80s, when it was started to be cool to be Indian. And in the 90s, when everybody wanted to be Indian. I'm Indian too. You know, I had a lady, I was doing a show, and a lady come over and she talked to me, and I'm trying to sell baskets, you know, I'm trying not to ignore, I'm trying to be polite. And finally she leans way over and she says, I'm Indian too. And I said, why are you whispering about it? Be proud. You know, because today I am proud. There was a time when I used to fantasize that I was white. There was a time when I didn't want to go home because of the violence, the intoxication, the people coming in. Taxis would come in, bring non-native people into their camp, only because it was okay to drink there. It was only because, you know, people, no matter who it is, if they want to drink, they want to look at somebody lower than they are to drink with. I found that out the hard way. But anyway, I married a non-native, and I had 4 beautiful kids, and I put them through hell, from the hell that I lived through. Stern, angry, and violent, and I am so proud of them today that they're all successful. And so it's being accepted of who we are today. You know, the title that we have for the mascot is not accepted today in Native American communities. And was it accepted back 60 years ago? It probably was, because we never stood up and argued. We never stood up for our rights. And today I hope that non-native people have, and when I'm talking non-native, I'm talking white people. You know, as some white person might be sitting here saying, well, that black taxi driver down in Alabama, he's non-native. You know, and that's not what I mean. You know, the native people of this state, of the provinces. My tribe goes from Quebec, Prince Edward Island, into Newfoundland. There's 29 reservations, Mi'kmaq Indians, in the state of Maine and 5 provinces of eastern Canada. You know, we used to be 100,000 strong at one time, covering 250,000 square miles. We went down to 1,800. That was a study that was done, 1,700. Went down to 1,800. I figured there might have been another 1,000, 1,500 out in the woods that they didn't know about. But at the same time, we dwindled something like it. And Jesuits come in, and he says that your God is not a real God. You can't believe in him. You know, you got to believe in our God. And when we believed in their God, they gave us blankets, to these blankets, these clothing. And it started killing us off my people. And from there, who did we go for help? To the Jesuit priest. They would only come in and bring in more disease. You know, but our God wasn't good enough. Today, my Creator is good enough for me. And the decision that's made here tonight, or next week, or next month, it really don't matter. It ain't going to make a difference to me. It ain't going to make a difference to you people in another 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. But I just want people to know that if it's offensive or abusive to Native people today, there are Native people that's willing to stand out and say, this ain't right. We have to change it. And I say we. You know, I ain't saying you have to change it. I ain't saying I want to change it. I just say we have to change it as people. Thank you.
I just wanted to see who can vote. I'm Noah Bernard. I'm up from Aroostook County. One of our tribal elders. Said a lot here today. Like he's saying, it's the name, I guess, to change. As I grew up, those were fighting words. I had to fight to defend myself because I got picked on, being Native. I went to a school with there's only just me and my cousins that were there that were Native. So I had to learn to fight to survive. I was called every name in the book you can think of. And that's what's happening here, in a sense. Bringing back trauma to me right now. I can look back, how does it affect me? I'm not looking how it's affecting anybody else, it's just how it's affecting me. And how it has affected me over the years. So, I am an emotional person, I can't help it. A lot of times you see me, you really got to know me. I like to joke around, carry stuff like that. I'm human. And, you know, it's glad to see as many people as there are here. I know the town is bigger. I've been back here in the year 2003, 2004. I was working out of wells. And, you know, over the years, things have happened. And it's good to see that people can get together for a common goal or a common interest and try to make something positive come out of it. And I guess that's my strong point to point out. To focus on the positive. If we can make a change, that's fine. Because I know some people don't like that. You know what I mean? I've been changed, programmed over the years for change. It started way back with my brother here, Richard. We call each other brothers and sisters. He gave a little bit of history. And I didn't know what to talk about coming up here. I can only talk about my story because that's what I got. And but I look back, and he touched on a lot of things, is how our people been segregated over the years, put down, degraded, taken from our homelands, shoved on a reservation. Call it what you will. We were put in jail, in a sense. We weren't allowed to practice our ways. We weren't allowed to do anything. If we were caught stepping out of bounds, which was imaginary line for the reservation, we were shot and killed on sight. My ancestors were. Many of us survived because we changed, we adapt, we all do. But, you know, over the years, many as kids, you know, it was like growing up. You see how things were. You see how change is going, how our malls are growing, building and growing. So we had to grow and survive. I can't go back to the old days. I practiced our old ways through ceremonies, things that were taught to me from my elders, and being guided and so forth. But when it comes to change, it's the hardest thing to do. You know, some people say I should go back to school, get educated. I tried it. I just didn't fit in. I felt out of place. So it's, I really don't know what to say. I just like to hear some other people to share some of their stories because we know how we feel. We kind of know how you feel. But if you talk from your heart, share from your heart, let us know what's on your mind because I'm not a mind reader. And it'd be good to share you got some laughter, break a joke out, because it's too many times we're too serious, and you know how it is. And I'm just thankful for being here today. And I'll share some more later if I have to. Don't be shy. I did it. Somebody else did.
Roman, that was a great invitation. I just wondered if Tom, if we had something, because I think we do want to enter into that conversation with any thoughts you want to share with us.
In 1620, the English were coming off the Mayflower. That is probably what they heard. The language of the land. I have the great honor and privilege to be teaching at the University of Maine at Orono campus. And then the words of one of my mentors, Chief Leroy Little Bear, who was Blackfoot, was also an educator out in the University of Alberta. In the sentiment of Chief Little Bear, I have the great honor and privilege of misleading my students. I have a great time with those young kids. I love being there. I love sharing ideas with them. That's not just me talking all the time, but to kind of get into their heads. We have a great privilege of spending a whole semester together, getting to know each other. I don't have any tests. I don't give them any tests, no quizzes. I have them write journals. And in the journals, I can kind of have a sense of where they are and where they're coming from. We have great discussions in the classroom. I teach in Native American Studies and Peace and Reconciliation Studies. And it's a real privilege for me to do that. In the same context and respect, it's a real privilege for me to be here too. And unfortunately, we don't have a semester together. So I'm trying to think of something that would be benefit, hopefully to the course of the conversation tonight, if we have time for that. And I wanted to speak at this point because the previous speakers, this is their homeland. I'm a visitor of their homeland. And in the indigenous cultures, we're very mindful about where it is we are. I'm here out of a privilege, not as a right, even as a Native American. And this is a protocol that existed prior to Columbus. And we've maintained that. We've been making treaties with each other, by example, long before Columbus came. At the time of Columbus, we were in a state of confederacy. If you look at the United Nations, for instance, my ancient grandmas and grandpas would see that as a confederacy. Many different nations coming into one house. Interesting thing about confederacy is when we're a member of a confederacy, we don't war. We consider ourselves Joshua. That's how my culture would understand confederacy. Joshua, the great family. We look at ourselves as great family. But we go beyond ourselves as human beings, and we look at the earth and the sky, all the life between the realms of the life above our head and the life below our feet. Everything between that realm we are connected to. We are connected to in profoundly powerful ways. A sober reality is our species here. We cannot survive without the earth. We cannot survive without creation. Without the life of the land, the life in the land, the life around us. We live in a perfected biosphere called the earth. Just the right kind of measurement, just the right kind of conditions that make it possible for us to live as a species. In my mind, I'm not here as a human being. I'm here as a snowy owl, a namesake. I'm the house of the otter. Wherever you see the otters in the river, those are my kin. Those are my relatives. I come from the people of the wolf, the Wampanoag. To us, that's reality. And I wish that I had to be part of something that could be an ongoing dialogue between us. Part of the dilemma that we all face is that we don't have an ongoing forum where we can come together on a regular basis and share our ideas. I think sometimes the root of conflict is due to the factor of time. We had the time. We might start off in our conversation on opposite polar ends of it, but by the time we begin to recognize that we're saying the same thing, and we're coming from the same needs, and we have the same desires and the same wants. When I look at this young one here, I see my children. That's what we think about. So, and believe me, you can ask any of my students, I'll keep them there a long time. Because there's just so much to share. A social phenomenon in North America, principally United States, a social phenomenon. How long have we've all been here together, both cultures? And yet, Indian country knows everything about you. We know your strengths, your weaknesses. We can speak your language. We understand your ideas. But North America knows nothing about Indian people. And especially when we live in the closest proximity. Eastport, Orono, Old Town. And in my community, Mascot, I live on Cape Cod. And anywhere in North America you find this true. Anywhere in North America. Those communities who abut reservations or Indian communities tend to be the least interactive, the most hostile, and know nothing about each other. Superficial. A social phenomenon. I just wanted to share very briefly a thought about the art of friendship. The art of friendship. I may not see you again. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, the next half hour, if our paths will always cross. But there was a life before Columbus came. When you think of the World Atlas, Van McNally World Atlas, interesting thing the way the land is shaped. The way most of the world is all congregated together, except the Western Hemisphere, separated by 2 great oceans. No matter where the explorers, no matter where the Europeans went, they ran into Indians. North, Central, South America. This whole side of the world was Indian peoples. And we weren't just kicking our feet in the sand waiting for Columbus to show up. contrary to popular. But the life here was thriving. We had an estimated hemispheric population of 100 million people. Just in the island chains where Columbus landed, there was at least 3 million people living there. This place was vibrant. We knew about the buffalo. We have words in my language. Eo, stout man. Eo. The easternmost designated location of the buffalo was about Ohio. Buffalo it represents one of these major food economy, stretched from northern Canada, what's now Canada, down to Mexico. Fed many, many nations. Many, many nations benefited from the relationship to the buffalo. I honor buffalo, even though buffalo was never part of my culture. I honor buffalo because the people honored my buffalo. I come from a culture, historically, called the corn culture. Corn fed many, many more nations. The entire East Coast, all the way down to southwest United States, all the way through Mexico, all the way through Central America, all the way through northern South America. You know, the Andean cultures, what they were referred to as the Inca, they still exist. But Inca was never their name. There was Quechua, the Quechua culture. The Quechua, the Mayan. The Mayan are probably the most extensive Indian group in all of the hemisphere. 22 separate languages alone in Mayan culture. In these days, the Mayan have gotten world renowned because of December 21st, 2012. And that's another story. Another story, part of the same story. And the only time of the whole year that Wampanoag people are even thought of is in November. I want to tell you a little story. It's comical to us, Wampanoag people. By the way, we've never fully recovered from the King Philip's War, 1675. We've been in a state of recovery. We're showing signs of resiliency, but we've never fully recovered. If any of you have an opportunity to visit Plymouth, Massachusetts, I highly recommend that you spend a little time at a place called Plymouth Plantation. Plymouth Plantation is one of these living museums. You physically walk into the site and it's like you're transported back into 1620. And they have real life actors portraying key personalities of Plymouth colony at that time, 1626. Wampanoag people got there a little bit by accident. I'm not sure of the opening date of Plymouth Plantation, but somewhere in the mid-50s. Mid-50s. English is a second language word. My jaw is not quite constructed for English. As any speaker would probably tell you. About the mid-1950s, the idea blossomed into from an idea to actually. An interesting thing about the town of Plymouth. Plymouth considers itself America's hometown. It carries the motto, America's hometown, where it all began. It's cute. But you know, one of those places of origin for Plymouth is Indian policy. The development of present-day federal Indian policy applied to Indian people, Indian laws, federal Indian laws. The only group of laws that are applied to Indian people only. There's a whole policy. And there's a long legacy of how that policy came into being, preceding Columbus. But nevertheless, mid-1950s, the establishment of Plymouth Plantation, a living museum. There are no Wampanoag people. Lo and behold, doors are open, everybody's amazed at the sight. Then they start to ask, where are the Indians? Because what happens on Thanksgiving? What happens in our school? It's the Pilgrims and the Indians. Where are the Indians? And for a couple of years, Plymouth Plantation put up with the question. And you know, the finicky thing about the touring public, they want to know. You know? So the evolution of the Wampanoag program first started with cardboard figurines. So they had images of Indian people, and they had all this facts and stuff written down. And I don't know if any of you have ever had the unpleasant experience of trying to communicate with cardboard figurines. It can be done.
I chopped it all.
Be careful, you have a light after this. It was clever, but it didn't suit the public. They wanted interaction. So that evolved to hiring white people to do the work. And of course, the public seen through that, as gifted and talented as people were. So eventually that evolved to hiring Indian people from somewhere else. And that worked for a little while. But they couldn't answer some of the real questions about what are the Indians thinking now. What are the Indians thinking now? My community is only 50 miles from Plymouth Plantation. There's about 6 Wampanoag communities right now. Plymouth Plantation had to break down and invite Wampanoag. But the art of friendship. Why did it take it so long? And then what were the conditions of the Wampanoag people coming into Plymouth Plantation? Because there's something that's hanging in the air. You can almost cut it with a knife. It's tension. Program, the Wampanoag program has been there since 1975, and it's not been easy. It's undergone a lot of evolution. We like to think that it's making progress, and it is. But we haven't progressed very far in terms of the context of friendship. Whatever you decide, as my uncle suggested, it's your decision. If you truly want to honor the people, you have to get to know them. We're not the boogeyman that the absence of history is portrayed. We have feeling. We have heart. You would not begin to even imagine what it's like for Indian people in the 21st century. You wouldn't even begin to imagine. You wouldn't even begin to think that these kinds of things would happen right now, right here, out of your eyes, out of your feeling. Alvin Josephine, a noted historian, stated, for Indian people, This has been the longest continuous war in the state of the world, in the history of the world. And he's not kidding. Maybe today's warfare isn't with guns, it's with attitudes. We live together in close proximity, but we do so in the construction of social fear. Because we don't know. We don't trust the other. You might be upset and surprised, but for Indian people, what is happening in Iraq, what is happening in the Middle East with the Palestinians, this is American Indian federal policy exported to some other place. There's 500 million indigenous peoples in the world. The same story. It's the same story in Canada, the same story in New Zealand, in Australia, in South Africa, in the Middle East, on the Pakistani-Indian border. Everywhere you see it, it's the same story. The art of friendship. What will it take for us to be friends? We come from a culture that scarcely have any remote connection to our former homelands. You don't think for a moment that your lands and those beautiful places that hold great meaning for you in whatever capacity, the land itself, don't think that Indian country does not ache. Not for the loss of it, because we never owned it, but for the access, for the memory, for the history. Our people were born in this spot. Our people found their vision in this spot. This is our emergence place. These are our burials. No matter where you go throughout this hemisphere, you're going to run into evidence of Indian country. We love this land more dearly than you can imagine, because it's been the source of our life. When you think about the Mascot, think about that, the art of friendship. What will it take for us to really know each other? And then, as my brother Noel said, what do we do with that information? What do we do with this? For our part, and you don't have to believe me, but to us, our word means something. The Lakota people out in South Dakota, out on the plains, have a saying. Their whole culture is based on this. Their whole ceremonial life is based on this. According to the Lakota, they own nothing. There's nothing of this world that they truly own. Everything that they have, food, lodging, clothes, everything that they have comes from the earth. The earth as the source of this. And they have the privilege of having that and be given that. But what do they truly own? Is their body. Is their word. And then many other cultures here on the East Coast, our culture includes our word, is so important to us that we didn't know of any very, very rare occasions where people would lie to each other. And if people lied to each other, we could not trust them. And if we could not trust them, they could not stay with us. Because they would jeopardize the integrity and the well-being of the community. And from us, relationship is everything. Relationship is everything. It's the most important thing. You are just as important to me as my uncles. Everybody in this room. That's indigenous thinking. And despite everything that's ever happened here, we don't have to get into details, but that's a story that you all need to hear. So you know where we're coming from. And we're serious about life. We're serious about future. There's something to 2012. But it's not the Hollywood version of what you think is going to happen. But there's an event that's going to take place that doesn't happen every once in 26,000 years. And we get to participate in that event. And what comes from that? When you think about, Noel and I came up together, we rode to this downpour. And smelled the air. And to me, ceremony's been my whole life. To me, it's the foundation of everything that I am, and what I'm doing. I think about it all the time. The language that I speak to you is the same language that I speak to the greater about my language. We're taught to address the sacred in our language. It's the same language that I speak to you. I speak to the sacred. We do that because our word is that important. Believe it or not, historically, we don't have any swears in our language. We had to actually invent them. But they're not there naturally because it's the same language that we use to address the sacred. So our thinking is really hot-wired to relationships. If you're serious about honoring the people, spend time with the people. Then you'll know how to honor us. And the relationship begins, then we can find that magical moment where we can actually be friends. And we can move to the future together in friendship. All the treaties that we've ever made with the English and the French have all been titled Peace and Friendship. It's peace and friendship is the centerpiece of the relationship. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
I take my second turn.
You're the elder.
18. Now I was just sitting there thinking, what's the name and the title? And I was just going over some of the titles that was given to me over the many years. When I was sitting there thinking about the time that I was called the dirty Indian, stinking Indian, drunken Indian, and no good for nothing Indian. And the only good Indian today. And I also had a gentleman who was a little bit more generous. And he told me, he says, I really want to thank you people for taking care of our land until we came. That was quite a statement. And this gentleman was in Alcoholics Anonymous, the same place I was. And if I was still active, him and I would have had a little chat. But this time I was talking about the land. When any one of you or your neighbors come out of the house, when you're driving by the woods or the forest, you're having a chance to walk through the forest, looking at a mountaintop, or sitting by a stream, just watching the water or stream trickle down. If each and every one of you experience that, would put a thought in your mind and say that this was all once Indian country, which it was. Some of it, very little, has been purchased. A lot of it was taken by force. Kiskatanam was also said that we don't own land. And that's been a belief in Indian country right along. We never owned any land. After I married my non-native wife, we purchased land. because it was the thing to do. But when we got divorced, that judge, he confirmed the fact that Indians don't own land. And once again, it was take it away. So, anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to come down, speak with you, and meet and make new friends. I guess Don Mook said, probably friends we'll never see again. But at the same time, I'm going to enjoy the drive back just as much, if not more, because I'm not going to have to think, what I'm going to have to say. I didn't think about it much when I was coming down either, because I had a paper right there on the seat. I'll throw that out. Thank you.
I would just say one thing is that we have volumes and volumes of authentic information that we'd love to share with any individual. Find some way of making contacts and see what we can do to pass that on.
No.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, I know that in the minutes here also, I'd like to invite you to add something to say.
Thank you very much, Noel. I hadn't planned to speak, but I do want to put a few things onto the record because my people are not represented here tonight. I'm what they call a dual walker. My mother was white and my father was native, but I can't prove I'm half white.
Yeah, I got some white blood in me too somewhere. I can't prove it.
I'm just
Your name, sir?
I'm going to tell you, John. White people are very fast. Everything is rapid, like the water.
It's just the media. They make sure the speakers introduce themselves.
Okay. I'm Ron Phillips Prevost. I kept my stepdad's name. My father's people are Phillips. This town was once called Phillips Town. Perhaps that would be a good mascot name for the school, to go back to the ancestry of the town's beginning. Believe it or not, I'm very, very old. I try to keep myself going, but I'm quite elderly. The doctors tell me I've beat the odds, whatever that means. I haven't figured that one out yet. I just lost my best friend, and we were walking through the cemetery, and there was a tombstone, and it said on it, "As you are now, so once was I, so prepare to follow me and die." Underneath that, someone in black crayon wrote, "To follow you, I'm not content until I learn which way you went." So I tell my students, I taught at the University of Maine also, and over in Gorham. And I've been teaching for 37 years, but I had to quit. I have a sign that says, "I hate to quit it." It sounds like an Indian tribe. What if you run the words all together? I hate to quit it. Can't quit it. Anyway, long story short, I've taught for 37 years. I have never killed a kid, almost once. He was bigger than me, though. But I'd been haying the day before, so my back was a little more limber. But he would have broken my back. He threw me through a wall. Anyway, we refer, in the native world, we refer to our young people as the seventh generation. They're the most important thing of all. I have a gathering at my home every year, and I invite people from Canada, from other nations to come down and speak, because I think it's important that our perspective is held. In the native world, we have two roads, the red road and the blue road. The blue road is not good. The red road is a road that we walk, but it's very difficult. We call it balance. And people say to me, "What do you mean by balance?" Well, you think about it, and balance is the space between when we breathe in and when we breathe out. That's balance to me, the red road. It's very difficult. Growing up, I was faced with terrible things, just like my brothers and sisters here. We had to constantly hear dirty, go away, your opinion doesn't count, you're a half-breed, you're a, what do they call the other one? If you're not a half-breed, you're a terrible names. The natives believe that the world is round. Is not a bird's nest round? Columbus came, he was told the earth was flat and he was going to fall off. Well, it didn't happen, did it? No, because it's round. The concept of ownership to us is very strange. To own Mother Earth, Makahina. We don't own Mother Earth. I'm a caretaker of my own lands now, which I share with my people. It's a sacred spot. I had at the gathering cars going by and saying, well, what's going on? And Harland, it was terrible to say to them, you are going on. Because they weren't invited. They weren't on the same wavelength as we are on. Our way of thinking is something that the people crave. I've never met so many people who are coming to me in droves. Please teach us. Please explain native beliefs. I said, well, we are part of a hoop. We're a spoke. The earth is round. The bird's nest is round. The white man's world is a pyramid. There's always somebody on top pushing down, pushing down. We do not live in a pyramid world, the native people. We're all equal. Every one of you is a valued creature made by Creator. I'm not better than you. Maybe I have a couple of more wampum beads than you, but I share it. The idea of greed, of possession, the idea of throwing things out a window. I see young people do it all the time, and it tears my heart out to see them throw things onto Mother Earth without regard to what tomorrow will bring. The attitude of laissez-faire, leave me alone, I don't care. What difference does it make? We're all going to die tomorrow. That isn't true. It's not true. So somebody is missing somewhere in the school system. They're not getting across enough moral principles. They're not getting enough, well, I don't want to say churching, but I don't know what to call it. I don't want to blame our religious institutions. I think they're overburdened now. But I do think when I was in the hospital visiting a while back, I mentioned a few of these concepts, and they asked me, will you come back? Will you visit patients in the hospital? And I said, well, don't you have a chaplain? Oh, yeah, we have a chaplain. She's great, but we would like you to come anyway. And I said, well, I suppose I could cut myself into thirds. I don't sit around and knit. I'm very, very busy because I really believe that as a native person, I need to share as much as I can with a short time. I won't be here that much longer. You can feel it. You know when someone's getting close to their time. Especially native people, we're very close to our Maker. We know His signs. We know when He is doing things to our body, even if we have bare spirit. We're still how do you say it? We're still obligated to pass on teachings. So I try to bring people in with different perspectives, because a lot of people walk around like this. Recently, I spoke to a women's group, I'll call it, but they were the daughters of the American Revolution. And I talked to them, I said, I'm just like you. The engagement ring, the wedding ring, the suffering. Thank you, because they didn't even laugh. Then I said to them, I was here when you got off the cauliflower. And they still didn't laugh. And I was like, what's wrong with me? My lines are not getting through today. Then at the very end, one woman, I said, are there any questions? And she raises her hand and she says, are you all alcoholics? I'm serious. She actually said that to me. And I looked at her and I didn't want to be disrespectful, because they were very prominent women, Harland, from this town. And I thought, good God, how ignorant they are. And I'm supposed to be the hypocrite, the ignoramus. But yet, I wasn't going to charge them any wampum, any money. But I decided I'm making them pay. So I charged them $100, which I donated to the Boys and Girls Club on the reservation. We had a big Wabanaki conference up at Brunswick, and I was invited to speak there, and I spoke in Farmington for what they call a seminar, and there were 50 teachers at that seminar. And here again, there are many resources out there that our young people don't know about, libraries and people who are willing to come in and do what we call a talking circle. I have found that talking circles are one of our most powerful ways of communicating, whereby Newell would come into my homeland and I would give him a stick. And you cannot talk because he's got the stick. And you can only talk with that stick, and you pass it around. And when he's all done, he says, Messi Dalma Maybeck, which means to all my relations, to all my ancestors. Native people are very aware of who they are, where they are, why we're here. We're just passing through. We try not to even mark Mother Earth if we can. Remember the ad of the Indian who turned out to be an Italian with a teardrop coming out of his eye, and Mother Earth was all polluted, and there was garbage in the stream and all that. I can't remember his name, but anyway, that's the one. Ionized Cody, that's the one. I almost forgot. But anyway, I want to make a few things clear about my brothers over in Sanford High with the name Redskin. It's hard for people from inside to understand the viewpoint of us from the outside, because they're going to say, well, you're from away, and therefore you don't understand. It's not true. I taught for 37 years. The mascots of my schools were Indians. How do you think I felt? Then they had the audacity to come, they knew I was native, and ask me, would you wear your headdress once or twice at a basketball game? I said, I want to live. I don't want my headdress is sacred. Another thing that people forget is costume is not regalia. Costume is fake. That means you are dressing up to look like me, but you're not me. I wear regalia. I have a necklace from the Gayhead Indians down in Plymouth, and I wore it to a ceremony a while back, and someone said, you look like you're real. And I said, really? And how do you know I'm real? Because look at your necklace. I saw that at the Peabody Museum at Harvard. And I said, well, I got to go there and see. So I kept the necklace on. It's a 1620 or 1600 necklace, which was gifted to me by a gentleman named Vanderhoop down in your part of the world. And he felt that I should have this. So I walked into the museum, and the guard was from another nation, and he looked at me, and he said, I'm going to have to go with you, sir. And I said, you mean walking through the museum? He said, oh yeah, I have to go with you. So he's following me through the rooms, and they have wax figures with beadwork on and the regalia of their particular tribe, whether it was Pequot or Wampanoag or whatever in that area. And I was shocked when I came into the next room. Here was a native man standing with his skins, and around his neck was my necklace. So I thought, okay, I came in with this necklace and I'm going out with it. And I'm not going to have a glass thing put over me. So I moved pretty quickly. But that was an interesting experience. After that, I helped participate at Harvard against the museum because they had so many human remains. And we called our friends who are repatriation people that came down and took the bodies. You all heard, maybe they kept it quiet, a couple of years ago, they found 2 bodies down in wells. The water had exposed, the young boys were hunted, and they apparently had been killed and were buried with their weapons, and the waters kept washing them away until the bones were exposed. So they called the forensic people, and they came in, and they thought that it was a murder, So they were doing these studies on the bones until they learned that they were native. So at that time, Donna Augustine, who is one of our Mi'kmaq people from Canada, came down to my home with her people and went over there and reburied the bones and did ceremony. There's a reserve down there in Wells. I've forgotten the name of it, but you all know it. It's very big. That's the one. That's the one. So they repatriated the bodies to Rachel Carson. Okay. Well, she must have been a wonderful woman with vision to know that that space was there. I remember Donna getting up in the morning and putting on rubber boots. And I said, Donna, why are you wearing rubber boots to go bury bones? She said, I have to go through a hell of a lot of mud. And I said, oh, okay. So she did that. Again, moving back, I went over to Scarborough when they had their decision-making to do about the changing from the Redskins. And I believe they call themselves the Red Storm?
Yes.
Okay, well, I spoke to the school committee, and I didn't tell them what to do, certainly not. But I told them how I felt, that it was an offensive term, and it was in the same category as squaw, almost as bad. And there are people here in Maine, they refuse to change the name. The Penobscot, Banawaska Nation, my people, call, they use the name, but they refer to all of the islands belong to the Penobscot people, and Carabasset Valley belongs to the Penobscot Nation. So you have to get a permit to go on there to hunt or to trap or to do anything without permission. It's not done. You just don't do those things. If you're not born on the reservation, something will settle in on you. I don't know how to explain it, but there's a thinking, and the thinking is not a healthy thinking. It's a thinking about, you owe me, you owe me. You've heard that before, and a lot of people, we have trouble with that. I have trouble with it personally, because I don't owe you anything. You took everything away from me, everything. My heritage, my people. If I did own land, you would try to get it off me, and they still do. And I'm sure they read the obituary every day to see if my land is available. Only I just put it into trust. So they're not going to get it. Three Rivers will do it first. That's a land trust that we have locally. I'm hoping that the young people who are coming along will feel and want to change. They will want to change. I'm hoping that the older people who went through the Sanford school system with the title Redskins understand now that it's time for the change. I'm hoping that they'll understand that what was is no longer acceptable and hurts. The words are very painful. They have derogatory meaning. They don't mean what they intended back then. It's not just true of the Redskins. But think for 1 second if I came into Sanford with a big sign for the mascots, and it said, Sanford Frogs. How would you think if I had a big sign, the Sanford Frogs? It's a derogatory term toward French people. You would feel absolutely violated. I know you, or Sanford Caucasians. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's teaching racism. When I taught in Newton, Massachusetts, which is a very outstanding school system, I was there for 10 years, and I finally resigned, but I had a lot of student teachers from Harvard College under my tutorage. And I started a course called the Native American Studies, and I invited professors from other states. I had Navajo, Hopi people come, people from down in Cape Cod came, and they did seminars for the Newton youngsters. But I'm getting off track as usual.
He said he was old. When he was born, the Dead Sea was just getting started.
You can tell that us elders stick together.
Maybe it's time we open it up.
Yes, I think it is. Yeah. Wooly Winnie, thank you so much for letting me say my part. And also for the future of the young people, I hope it continues that they will make the right decision. Thank you.
My name is Pat Hayes, and I'm a teacher at Mark Chase Smith School. And we teach the children to be respectful and responsible. And we have a rally each month, and our saying is do the right thing. And I'm hoping that our school district will do that. Thank you. That's us.
Thank you.
My name is Naomi Bryce-Newell. I'm a deacon here at North Parish Church, and my daughter is our freshman at Sanford High School. And she and I have discussed this issue several times. And it's a hurtful term. It should not be allowed. And should be changed. And we like the idea of Phyllis now.
My name is Elder Grant. I'm not a very good speaker. I was born and raised in this town. I went to school here. And every day I had to fight. Same thing when I went in the service. I had to fight. Why? Because I was Native. I was forbidden to use my language. Well, I lost a lot because I wasn't accepted. Going and living in this town and having the name, I guess that means too. Walk my shoes. Experience what I experienced and see if you like it. But it's funny. When a disaster strikes, how well everybody pulls together and becomes one and forget what their differences. Does it take a disaster for us to be all on one page? To respect each other? I don't think so. I think we all can be working together. Learn about our culture, about our spirituality. Elder Ron mentioned regalia. It's very important to us. Even a medicine bag. Sacred object. You don't want to grab somebody's medicine bag. That's their medicine. Disrespectful. When we make a regalia, part of ourselves goes in that regalia. Part of our spirit in here. A lot of people don't know that. But can you imagine living in this town, being Native? You have to fight your way through school every single day because somebody says something to you. I don't care if you're Native or non-Native, or what your religion is. No one should disrespect anybody. But we all can learn from each other. Learn our ways, our philosophy, our spirituality. So you have a better understanding. I don't care if it's native culture. It could be Hindu. It can be anything. But have knowledge to learn about the individual cultures and where they're coming from. You might find it very interesting. Become one. You know how we all feel. You want to happen to you? It's all right. Work together. Stop and think. That's what all the elders have said. Take it easy. Okay.
Before I introduce myself, I have a question. Is there anybody here from the Sanford School Committee present in this room? Okay, so you know who I am. My name is Gary Wood. You got my letter. Well, 4 others of you folks got my letter. I introduced myself as someone who just moved to Sanford, Maine. To begin with, I am part of Mascot. I wanted to be with these folks because this is the closest in going on 6, 7 decades now, do the math. This is the first time I've been this close to the people who are part of me, a part of my ancestry. What I told the school committee folks when I first wrote the letter, I told them I voted in my first election back in November, and I didn't vote for any of you because the name, what I call the R word, I want out of that word. Because of that, I'm not going to vote for any of this because this is the last place in Maine that uses that word. And why did it hang around an extra year after everybody else in Maine figured that it doesn't belong anymore? You look in any dictionary today, you look up that term, the R word. One of the things it says in all the dictionaries today, considered an inappropriate term. And another thing I told my school committee folks was I grew up, when I was in the first grade, my first friend ever was black, African American or whatever, and we experienced a lot of racism because of that. It was institutionalized racism. They justified a lot of things. I went to Louisiana State in 1970, the same year David Duke went there. You folks know David Duke, I think. And I wrote editorials about him, and I saw a lot of racism down there that people took for granted. And Louisiana State still has racial problems. But moving on, I was in Boston. I lived in Boston for 17 years. This time I was a parent. And I was there during when they had the busing crisis back in 1972. And just to shorten things, all these experiences, this happened because there was politics. There was politics within the school system. There was politics within the city that made it happen. I come here to Sanford, Maine. It's the same thing. They've done a lot of things in Sanford. They took the logo, the Mascot logo off of uniforms. Correct me if I'm wrong. They've done that and they changed it to S, so they wouldn't have the R word on there anymore. But my question is, what's taken them so long to do the rest of it? We're 1 year beyond when the rest of the state got the clue that it doesn't belong anymore. 1 year. Over here, we still have it. And to me, it's the same thing that I've experienced. Every place else that I've been, that I've seen these things happen, and it's happening all over again. Maybe it's not as bad, but it still comes down to one thing. The term we all know is institutionalized racism. Maybe, thank God we're not Sanford, Florida. You all know what's been going on down there. We're not Sanford, Florida, but just the same, Sanford, Maine is the last community in the state that still uses the R word. And I hope it's going to change. To me, it's 1 year too late. And once again, I'm happy to be here, close to people that I was considered being a part of when I was born.
I wish to thank everyone for coming. My daughter and I have to leave because it's school night. She's in school night. But thank you very much for coming, and I would like the dialogue to continue.
I'd like to say something, if I may. My name is Roland Cody, and I was born and raised in Sanford my whole life. I taught the Sanford school systems and so on. I'm certainly not here for a debate and so on, but I want to make one thing very clear, that we have always in Sanford respected the term redskin. And whether the school board changes it or not, I will always be a redskin for the following reasons. I was raised as a redskin. I used to sweep the floor in Memorial Gym when I was in the 7th grade so I could shoot a few hoops after I got done, and then eventually became a player there, and then a coach and so on. So let me make this very, very clear. No one in Sanford has ever been a racist. No one, as far as I know, has ever degraded the term redskin. We've always been very, very proud of it. In fact, I spoke to the school board a few months ago and then a few weeks ago and told them that I wish that they would keep the redskin, but if they felt it was for the best of the community, best for the students, which is what this is all about, I would live with it. Because I have never, ever heard anybody say anything bad about the Redskins, because for me, those are fighting words. I was born a Redskin, I'm going to die a Redskin. But I'm certainly very flexible, and I understand the feelings that you people have concerning that terminology. And I want to thank you very much for coming here tonight. I really appreciate it. And the school board is going to do what I think is going to be the right thing for the community. Thank you.
I wanted to say, when we looked, Midsick was asked by the chiefs to do this. Actually, first we were asked by a state commissioner to Midsick, Cush Anthony. Actually, I should mention 2 Midsick commissioners, Maine and Ohio state commissioners. State representatives are here, Roy Partridge and Cushman Anthony. And it was Cushman Anthony who has a long career, both as a state legislator and as a conflict resolution and peacemaker. He thought that these healing conversations, and he brought it to Midsick as healing conversations, were necessary. We decided to take it one community at a time because we didn't want to go, we wanted to take the time to come here, get to know you. You're not the last, you're the next, You are the people we are here with tonight. And we're here because we know and we really do know, that there are good people everywhere. And good people can have hard conversations. And so I don't, one of the things that I've learned in healing is that if you're made to feel ashamed, it becomes more hard to heal. And so we come with no shame and we come not blaming. We come to have this peace-building conversation. And like Lisa Tonemonk said, and Richard said, and Norman said, and it takes time. And unfortunately, there's a thing about it. There's a little function. It's a clock that has too many hands or no hands. I can never remember. No hands. It's going in every direction. But it has no hands because we take the time that's necessary to do the task that's in front of us. Whether it's making baskets, raising our children, having this conversation here at Sanford. And we understand that there's timelines and everything that people follow, but the conversation has to happen outside of a time. And it has to happen, as Coach Cody said, long after we still have to have these peace-building human conversations. And I'm grateful that you opened your community like this to us. This is new to have the community. And that's a testament to the people of Sanford. That here we say, we'll open our church and build this with good hearts. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the time that many members of the school committee have taken to talk with me about your culture, and the time that I spent this afternoon with Coach Cody and his son. And, listening is the ceremony. I just wanted to say that. I don't want you to feel ashamed in being black.
You're not Washington Redskins. We're hoping that they will open the stadium as generous as you open this church.
Could I just ask one question? Now I'm a little confused because recently I learned that redskin is not a skin color. It's a reference to the scalps that you were talking about. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the truth that we have been told by our ancestors. You will find people that will dispute that. That is our truth. I think that each person here can tell you the name they have, they use.
Because redskin in itself sounds pretty good. I mean, hey, red skin, white skin, it's like maybe honoring the color of your skin, but it really is not. And I was shocked to learn that. I did not know, thinking I know everything about a lot of things, but you always learn new things. I just learned that in our church, the Sanford Unitarian Church, recently. I did not know that. For
The
that
red
term,
skin
red skin.
could be that it's still bloody when it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is not good.
There's kind of, as a footnote, we call this connotation of a person being killed. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's the
And you
connotation.
paid them. Paid them. Yeah. Paid them.
I wanted to mention I'm a teacher at Sanford High School, a graduate. I'm born and raised here, and this is my coach sitting right over there, and a colleague and a very good friend of mine. And I can tell you that everything he said is true. I think I was in my second or third year teaching, and I kept having students asking me, hey, they seemed to think I could answer stuff, and they said, where did we get our mascot name? And I was tired of saying, I don't know. I know it's on my high school ring. I know I have an Indian headdress lapel that I wore all through college, a little pin on my lapel. And I have all kinds of, things from high school, very proud of it. I said, I don't know. So I'm going to educate myself. And I was pretty shocked at what I found. And I dug back to the 1930s, and at an interesting note, our baseball team was called the Sanford Plush Pounders before it was Redskins, because we made mohair plush here. Yeah. But it was, I've been studying this thing for probably 13 years now, and also all the other Redskin names in the area and professionally and in colleges. So I'm just filled with this stuff. But none of it was ever used in a derogatory manner, but there was never, in all the studying I've done, there was never any input from any Native Americans in any of this stuff. And I can say, make a very educated statement here, that we took the Mascot name because it was fun. It was fun and exciting, and it was something we could identify with, that we could all grab a hold of. And all we had to do was put a little war paint on, and we were all Indians all of a sudden. And it was fun. But it wasn't until I educated myself and enlightened myself till I found out what we were actually doing. And I pretty much did a 180. And I've written a couple reports on just a very straightforward, factual history of how we got it. And actually, I'm doing I guess to give a plug, I'm doing a presentation next Thursday night at the museum on high school mascots. And I spend quite a bit of time on our Sanford one. It's interesting. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but it is what it is. And I didn't hear anybody mention here tonight. Some of you may not know if you're new in town. We have a code of conduct in Sanford that was adopted by the school committee after it was passed by students, teachers, and community members. And there are core principles that we are supposed to follow. And one of the most important ones is respecting other people and respecting their feelings. And what we have now, even though we don't have the intention, is incompatible with that code of conduct. It doesn't work. And I told a couple of school committee people that one of them has to go. If we want to keep Redskin, we have to drop part of our code of conduct because we're not following it. And you guys probably drove here 1,500 miles combined, I would guess, to come down here. I can't believe this. I can't believe that you guys drove all the way down here to do this. I mean, this is serious to you.
530 miles. Right?
Jeez, that's
And I
incredible.
left my car for it.
But how far would we go to you? You know, you've come this far. How far are we willing to go to you? Well, I would submit, I would hope that people of Sanford, whatever opinion you want, just all of you here, I think, have really educated yourselves quite a bit. And you've told me things I've never heard before. Each of you has really enlightened me. And I think that's all we can really, really ask for, to make an enlightened decision. And it's going to take courage. And I got to tell you one little reason, that there's a little bit of background on why I think we haven't done anything about our name. When I came out with my research and I looked at it, and I was kind of shocked. And I showed it to somebody on the school committee, and I won't say who he is, he's a friend of mine. And I said, look at this. Why don't you guys bring it up and talk about it? And he looked right at me and said, I don't want to be remembered as the guy that got rid of our mascot. I just thought, courage. That's what we're missing. We're just missing that courage thing. And I hope that our school committee will do one or the other. That they'll either drop the name or get rid of that part of the code of conduct. And something that's even just a really innocuous issue, it's really small, is I feel, no matter how you feel about this whole Redskin thing, I feel terrible for every class of students that I have, because they go through school with no mascot. And I know that's not, in the big picture, that's not really a big deal, but I feel like they're all being robbed. Every year, we have a whole class go through, they have no mascot. What are they going to do, wave around the letter S? And by the way, I'm the one that made the letter S. It's all over the program, the school board uses it, it's on our student surveys. I made that just so we could have something. But I don't know, how many more years are we going to go without having a mascot here, something that we can use that's going to be compatible with our own code of conduct that we passed? How many more classes are we going to rob? We've got a mascot, it's in the closet. We can't use it. And hearing you guys, what you guys have said is just incredible. And I'm so appreciative that you came down here. I still can't believe you guys came all the way here just to talk to us. You guys are pretty serious about this. But there's a lot of good people in this community, and a lot of great people. And one of my idols, Mr. Cody over here, my good friend. And I think and I hope that in the end we're going to do the right thing for you. I just hope we do.
It's your name?
Paul.
Paul.
What is it called?
Paul. Paul Auger, A-U-G-E-R.
It strikes me as the compassion that you and Coach Cody talk from. I think this issue probably wouldn't have been as sensitive to the people if it wasn't for the fact that we're still in it. We're still in conflict. It isn't this, it's something else. It never ends. The Penobscot Nation is facing a tremendous ecological scenario with a landfill that borders on their river. That's about to be, the state is about to sell it off to a private developer. They want to use that landfill. It's what's the name of it? Juniper Ridge landfill. With New England-wide biomedical debris waste. And the Penobscots are not even being consulted with this, and they're going to, and their neighbors are going to be severely impacted on this. Serious issues like that, and it's happening all the time. One thing after another, it never stops. And I think that this is probably as passionate as everybody in this town is. That in comparison to some of these bigger issues, it almost seems like a non-issue. But I clearly see the passion in this, and it's not lost on us, for sure. So I really appreciate what everybody said, the passion that you and Coach Cody are sharing with us, and the goodwill that's behind it. I'm forever walking on. I'm born walking on. You two we're on the same page.
By the way, I am going to Plymouth Plantation Sunday with my kids.
When you get to the Wampanoag Park, I'll tell them I said hi.
I wanted to just add what I've had. I'm Coach Hanson. I'm a member of the Tribal State Commission. I really appreciate the fact that there's no suggestion here of ill intent in the choice of the Redskin mascot. And in fact, as Coach said over here, it's a matter of pride. It was a matter of pride, the choosing of it. You described it as more fun, but I sense it was more than just fun. It was also a feeling that this was a prideful and respectful way. There's a difference between intent and what is experienced after the fact. These people experience it as something very painful, and we have to pay attention to that. It seems to me that is the most important thing. I would not use a name. I would be offended if I heard a name being used of my friend that I knew my friend found insulting. And I think all of us feel that way. We'd stand up for our friend in a situation where he was being called names. That is exactly what's going on here. These people are our friends, and they come here as our friends. So despite the intent, the good intent,
really fine intent in the choice of that term, I think we have to pay attention to how it is experienced by our friends.
I'd like to tell another little story before I sit down again. The Micmac people of eastern Canada, the first people that they had contact with were the Basque and Portuguese fishermen. And the Micmac people would attack their ships and take their ships. They never killed none of the women, nor did they kill any of the children. They took them back to the community and treated them as one. Today, my daughter, she works for a gentleman who is Portuguese, and he knows some of the history of what the Micmacs did to them and what they've done to us. And anyway, they get along pretty good, and she gets along good enough so that she explained the proclamation to him. Well, anyways, he has season tickets to the Bruins, which I am going to tomorrow night. And I believe that he gives us these season tickets to get us down to Boston. And he says, "What time are you guys going to be there? I'll call and let the cops know that you come." So we go in the back way.
My name is Robin, and I was a long-time resident of this community. I currently still work here. I've raised children in this school system. And I was talking with my son, who's 27, just this weekend about this issue. He couldn't believe it was still an issue, actually. We can be very proud of this town. There's much to be proud of. My kids grew up here. They were very proud of the sports program. We made states and all kinds of, different sectors. But it wasn't because of the name. It was because of the people and the community here, and that this was Sanford. This is where the roots were. It was not because of the name. And it's offensive. And we're getting educated. And I really, really think we need to pay attention and think about, something bigger than ourselves. So I'm hoping that the school department and people will pay attention. We can find another name, another mascot. It'll take some getting used to, but we still have a town that we can really be proud of.
And as far as going the other way, I'll make sure that the school committee has a list of all the summer times where you could come drive up and see. At a time when they're open.
Mr. Jameson, I don't know if you'd like to inform.
We've got another speaker here.
Oh. Well, some people are wondering about the process. I thought maybe you might want to tell.
Oh, yeah, that'd actually probably be a good time for that, because nobody's right here.
I just want to make sure that we don't forget.
Why don't you do it? I could right after he's done. That way, because we kind of keep it going.
Yeah, sure. My name's Dave Agan. I have two stories. I live just across the border in Wells, although my heart's in Sanford. Back when our children were in junior high school in Wells, we noticed that the doormat inside the door of Wells Junior High School had a huge Indian head on the doormat. And we spoke to the administration, and it was a simple enough matter that they said, yes, we'll remove this doormat with the Indian head on it. It's not appropriate to be wiping your feet on a person. But down in Wells, we still have Indian head on the basketball court. The nickname is the Warriors. When you're ready, when it's timely, we welcome you to come to Wells. In the 1960s, I went off to a college that had originally been formed to be a school for Indians. It was founded in 1769. It was to be just for Indians. It became a school that essentially was for white men, mostly rich white men. When we went to the football games,
there was a guy who took his shirt off no matter how cold it was, wore buckskin pants, fake hairpiece, no.
Headdress.
No, it was a hairpiece. Wasn't like this gentleman here. And he beat a big drum. And the school was called the Indians. Well, a courageous young man, a native man from Colorado, I knew this fellow. In 1968, he wrote a letter to the school newspaper. And he said, "You'll be surprised to hear that I take offense at this." And this guy's name was Dwayne Berthier. Just passed away a couple of years ago. Within 5 years after that, this school had, after this one letter, this school gave up that Indian symbol. And it did not hurt the reputation of the school or the spirit of the school. And people there, when it was called Indians, believe it or not, still take pride in Dartmouth Hall. And people that went to Stanford University the same way, and the University of Massachusetts, the St. John's University, and the Husson Braves, and now the Husson Eagles here in Maine, and the high schools in Maine that have changed. Roy's Towns High School. Nobody looks askance that the Scarborough High School is no longer the Redskins. They're now the Red Storm, just like St. John's University. So I guess I want to say that it's possible to be very proud of your school and your town and give up a name that's offensive to other human beings. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you all for coming down. Sanford's vision is to create lifelong learners. So the fact that you're willing to come down and give us some education is definitely appreciated as far as that goes. For everybody else, the next step in the process, our next televised meeting, May 7th, we're planning on taking public comment. We're setting aside an hour of the meeting. It will be, there'll be a sign-up sheet for people wishing to speak. There are rules and decorum. They're currently posted on the school's website. If you go to the school committee link, there's a link there that says public participation, something along those lines. They'll be posted that night as well. Pretty much just, no repetition, respectful. The chair, reserves the right to stop you from speaking if you deviate from any of these rules, and just along those lines. Just try to keep it civil, keep it going in a positive, constructive direction. So there'll be the sign up. There'll be a 2-minute minimum per speaker. So a 2-minute minimum. So everyone will get at least 2 minutes to speak. So if we end up with less than 30 speakers signing up, we'll take the remaining time and divvy it up. So if you only have like 20 people that want to speak, you'll be able to have 3 minutes. We decided when we talked about it at the last meeting that, if we didn't give people enough time, you need to at least give people time to state their opinion. But we really can't have it going all night, so we kind of had to set that hour limit. So if you really want to speak, get there early and sign up.
How early?
I'll probably plan on being there at like 6 o'clock. The meeting's 7 o'clock in the town chambers. And then immediately following that, we will vote. And we'll find out if the Redskin will be retained or if we'll be searching for a new mascot.
Do you have any way to regulate whether the same number of people who are going to speak in support of it, in support of keeping the mascot, is about the same as going to speak to those who would like to share some education and want to change the mascot? Or it's just whoever gets there in time?
Well, we do ask that if you have a group of people, they're all speaking on the same, say there's a group of everybody from a certain organization in town. Instead of having 10 people sign up in the same group, have one representative. So we're hoping to draw a variety. But you're right, we don't have it formalized. We're going to let 15 people from one side and 15 people from the other side. So,
On what basis are you going to make your decision? Is it going to be if 10 people vote in favor of keeping the mascot name of today and 7 people vote against it, you're just going to go by the majority? Or are you going to do it based on your own feelings?
From the discussions with the entire school committee, we determined, because there was a proposal that we put it out to referendum, there was a proposal that we take a survey, and we determined that ultimately, as the elected officials responsible for the governance of the school department, that it was our responsibility to determine what was in the best interest of the community and the school. So it's going to be the 5 members of the school committee. So I keep seeing you like kind of dog bobbing around hard. So we've been taking the time to educate ourselves. As you heard Jamie mentioned earlier, Roland and Adam met with her this afternoon, and I believe Kendra Williams is planning, so she couldn't make it tonight, to meet with Jamie tomorrow morning, I think. So we've all been educating ourselves on the issue. And then the last piece of the puzzle will be taking that public comment May 7th, and that'll just, kind of add into it. But it's really going to be the 5 school committee members' decision.
How are you going to relate that to the ethical question that Paul?
What do you mean as far as?
The core values, is that going to come into play?
Oh, that definitely is a piece of it. I mean, it's pulling all that information in. I think Paul makes a very strong argument there.
The two aren't together.
Well, you're right. I mean, if the vote is to retain the Redskin mascot,
In other words,
then we'll have to reassess the core values.
If you vote to keep the mascot, then you're going to deny ethics. Is that it?
You're painting me into a nice corner, huh?
Yeah, well, you don't have to.
Yeah, you're really. Yeah. You're right. You really can't have the two together. I have to concede to your point, Ron.
One more thing. The vote is going to take place on May 7th after the forum. Is that correct?
The vote will take place. We'll take public opinion, and then there'll be the vote.
Same evening, correct?
Same evening. Okay.
Same evening.
Yes. So we decided, since everybody was going to be out for it, you'd probably like an answer like that.
I'd like to say something. My name is Marty Walton. I live in Kennebunk, and I'm here as a Quaker. And I think the key word that you said is what's best for the community and the school. How do you define community? Because we've been hearing tonight about community being much larger and inclusive than just the boundaries that are drawn between Wells and Kennebunk.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, in Sanford's vision, like right now, if you go, Sanford a few years back decided that we kind of need like a new direction for education. So there's the Vision 2015. It's a website. If you go to the school website, you can link over to it. And it's all about building community and how the school really is kind of the foundation for the community. And when we talk about community, we're talking about the businesses that are in town, the families, the different organizations in town. But you're right, it's not just within the geographic boundaries of Sanford. We have students from Acton that attend our high school. They're part of the Sanford community. We've got the Regional Tech Center at the high school. York, Wells, Massabesic, Noble, they all come and they're part of the Sanford community because of that. On top of that, we've got, the Tech Center, supplies skilled labor to the area. Down in North Berwick, Pratt Whitney, all those big companies that are in York County. We consider them part of the Sanford community. So we do have that kind of big picture of everybody that's affected by it. Does that answer?
Well, it's not that I need an answer. But
You just kind of clarification?
I think that is something to be thinking about. To stretch all of our minds as we look at our community.
The information that we shared tonight this evening, and certainly we have a good crowd here, but it's a lot smaller than I was hoping. And the information that we did share with you, is it going to stay within the people here, or is it going to be put out into the community in some way?
We actually have a young gentleman from our tech center in the media department who is taping the whole thing,
And Sanford has recently started their own television station within the tech center. Right now it's just online, but they're supposed to be on cable in a few months, hopefully.
I think, given the amount of, I would say, tape in the old days, with the amount of time that it has been there, I'm sure they're going to try to condense it.
Yeah, they'll
into
edit it out some. But they're planning on having it up on the website.
It'll be on the website, and they'll be able to
WSSR
stream from there.
And there's actually a link from the school department website over to it. So I'm sure the media folks here will put it in the paper that it's going to be up there too. So.
I know MetroCast, our local cable provider, wanted to broadcast it also. So I think they want a copy of the tape too.
On an energetic level, what's Robin. I really appreciate what you said, Robin. And I'm kind of thinking, that, should there be a new search, that whatever the decision on what the mascot would be a tremendous monument for how it's actually, it's just on an energetic level, that all the schools, colleges, people are rethinking this very, very deep places. Energetic level, it's pushing us all back to where we should have been when we were on the beach. Right. And we've come full circle, and now we're beginning to have a sense of this need to be together, this need to have these isms that stand between us. And I think of the new mascot as being a monument and a testimony to what it does for people to open their hearts and move forward. So thank you.
Sanford Robin. Is there a couple of more up there?
I'd just like to say that it was very, very informational tonight, and I thank you all for coming here. As a mom who, I look around and I don't see too many other children that were brought here. I brought my son here, okay, to also educate him. He's a great young fellow. You know what? He's doing so much in his schools right now, even in just, the Willis School. Next year, he's going into junior high. I hope that there can be a decision made so that he will be able to stand up and be proud for his next 6-7 years of school. So, and he will be part of that change in changing a mascot. Okay, and be a bigger part of the community. So thank you for opening his eyes as well.
I want to say something real quickly. My name is Rick Wormwood. I'm from Sanford. I write for the Portland Phoenix, which is the free newspaper you walk past when you go into. And I've been writing. I wrote a feature about whether or not my hometown or Wiscasset would be the last town calling themselves the Redskins. And I'm sure you all read it. It's good to see you, Paul. It's been a long time. And I wrote a lot of columns about it. I'm not sure how many now. I'll consult my page. But I got a lot of pushback from that. And I'm a loyal Sanford person. I love this town. I came to the monthly big Cub Scout meeting in this very room, and I learned very positive values from people in this community, including Coach Cody, who I guess stepped out, who is a pillar of this community, who I disagree with very much on this issue. But this town is full of good people, and it's full of people who want to do the right thing. But what I've realized with the good people who disagree with the viewpoint that the mascot is wrong, is that there is a lack of empathy. There's a lack of being able to put yourself and try to understand something as someone else, because Coach Cody is absolutely right when he says that in Sanford there is a positive. When I came up through, it was a very positive thing, and there's people who cling to that and cling to it for good reason, because to them it is a positive thing. They're wrong, but that is their interpretation of it. And even here in Sanford, we have Camp Waban, which is a place for disabled children, which for years, as I was growing up, used almost identical Indian. Here's my cousin Rachel. Hey, Rach. Learned a lot of positive things from Rachel and her family in this community. And Camp Waban, who has their telethon, I think, in March every year, just had it, right? Oh, I guess you know I didn't call.
You can still do it.
I can still, thank you. They quite some time ago, did away with this. And I don't think Camp Waban has suffered. I don't think their mission has suffered. And I also believe that the people who haven't yet been able to find that empathy have an idea of racism which is too simple for the situation. And racism isn't just being Bull Connor on that bridge in the 60s in Alabama, turning water hoses on them. If a lack of empathy and a very simplified form of racism were made in a Venn diagram, there would be a big part in the middle. And I'm so thankful that you came to my hometown today to share like this with us, because it's the most important step. I got a lot of pushback from the articles I wrote, and I had things that kids in school wrote me. And the thing that was very distressing to me was that their responses were racist, and they didn't know it because they haven't been taught. And it's not political correctness. People will throw a tag on that to make it easy to dismiss in their mind. You're being politically correct. No, we should try, as good people, which this town is full of, to be empathetic and to understand the other viewpoint. So I'm very happy to hear Paul talking, because I remember, Paul, that I think the last time I heard, and I knew you were doing that research, when you said the 180, my heart filled when I heard him say that. And I feel as though if all of us can go out from this meeting and I just feel positive. You know what? I know this town is full of, this town is full of hard-nosed people too, in a good way. And I know some folks are going to be like, I don't give a damn. I'm going to be the last dog that dies as the Redskin. You know what? They've sent me a lot of emails. They're out there. And despite that, I feel very positive, and I really feel like a positive change is coming to Sanford. And that now, in the spectrum of things that Sanford gives its people to be proud of, that spectrum will be complete. So.
And Rick, you'll write a column celebrating it, right?
I'm writing it in my head right now. So thanks for listening.
I would like to make a suggestion, I guess, because none of us know which way people are going to vote. Whether they keep the Redskins or whether they do away with it. So, my suggestion is, if they do keep the Redskins, and they keep that little Indian head on their sweaters, would you please take the scalp off? That would be a signal. The scalp is gone. That's the Redskin is gone.
Just following up with that, thank you. As a Wampanoag, every November, a couple of things that I think about. One is, I hope that someday we take the Indian out of it, and find real, true means to give Thanksgiving on that day and keep us out. The other side of that is, if you're going to keep us in, you know us. Move forward with this relationship, because in the town of Plymouth, in Cape Cod, King Philip IV is still much alive. And there has to be something to end it. So I would even prefer you just take walking on people, take Indian English out of Thanksgiving, and find the means to be thankful. I really thank you, Richard, for saying this.
Yes. I'll wrap this up just by saying we started with a moment of silence. And I want to thank you for being here. I could talk a lot, but I won't, because I've been blessed by what you have said, and especially touched by your story going to school here, and appreciate the personal and depth of what you have to say. And to everyone, thank you for being here and for sharing from your heart. And may your heart guide you where you're going and where we are all going. So let's take a minute. Let's be silent again.
I'm sorry, can I have one closing remark?
I'm good with interruptions.
This could go on all night.
I just wanted to thank you for having us here, having me here, and like I said, I don't want you to believe me. I think to think about, the information that you gathered here tonight, and also I just want to mention something about, what hearing Paul talk about change, and people talk about change. Change for me is growth, and if you look out, and if you stop growing, that means you're dying. And if you look out at any tree out there that's alive, it doesn't look the same as it did last year. It changed, and it's growing. And if it stops, it's going to die.
Instead of closing your eyes, be silent, but look around and try to look in each other's eyes.